The emergency klaxons hadn't stopped wailing for 3 hours, and Commander Vex was seriously considering retirement. Again. Order. Order. The reptilian commander slammed his scaled fist against the podium, sending holographic displays flickering across the Galactic Council chamber. We are supposed to be the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, not a bunch of hatchlings afraid of the dark. Ambassador Quillix's feathers were practically vibrating with anxiety. But Commander, the reports. The humans are coming. It's today. Here. To this very station. Yes, Quillix, I'm aware. I scheduled the meeting myself. Vex rubbed his snout with both claws. 27 years of diplomatic service. And this was what broke him. Not the Zorbanian trade wars. Not the great tentacle incident of 2387. But one species of bipedal mammals that apparently scared the scales off everyone in known space. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 43 different species were in various states of panic. The crystalline collective had dimmed to barely visible. The gaseous federation was swirling nervously, and the Hive Queen's drones were literally crawling up the walls. What if they tried to domesticate us? Squeaked Ambassador Pip from the Rodent Coalition, his whiskers twitching frantically. What if they don't? Replied General Thorg of the warrior clans, somehow making that sound even more terrifying. Vex was about to respond when the teleporter pad in the center of the chamber began to hum. The assembled aliens collectively held their breath, tentacles, gas clouds, and various other breathing apparatus. A brilliant flash of light erupted from the pad, and when it faded, there stood him, the human, the apex predator. The creature that had become legend across 7 star systems in just 2 short years since first contact. Captain Jake Morrison, United Earth Space Force, stood 5 feet 10 inches of pure, terrifying normalcy. He wore a standard blue uniform, had slightly messy brown hair, and was currently looking around the chamber with the expression of someone who'd just walked into the wrong classroom. "Ah, everyone," Jake said, raising one hand in what Vex now knew was called a wave. The gesture sent half the council diving for cover. "Sorry I'm a bit late. The space traffic around here is crazy. You'd think with all this advanced technology, someone would have figured out better parking." The silence was deafening. Literally. The sonic species had stopped all vibration. Jake glanced around at the cowering delegates, his face scrunching up in confusion. "Is this a bad time? I can come back later if you're doing some kind of interpretive fear dance?" Commander Vex forced himself to stand straighter. Someone had to maintain dignity here. "Captain Morrison, welcome to the Galactic Council. We are honored by your presence." "Thanks. Great place you've got here. Very circular." Jake looked up at the domed ceiling. "Acoustics must be amazing. Have you guys ever considered hosting concerts? I bet my buddy Steve would love to play here with his band. They do this death metal / polka fusion thing that's surprisingly catchy." Several delegates fainted at the mention of death metal. The term had unfortunately been mistranslated in most databases as lethal metallurgy. "Perhaps," Commander Vex said carefully, "we should begin with some background information. Ambassador Quillix, would you care to explain to Captain Morrison why his species has become somewhat renowned throughout the galaxy?" Quillix's feathers were now doing things that shouldn't have been anatomically possible. "Oh dear, oh my, yes, well, you see, Captain, ever since your people made first contact with the Altarian Trade Federation, word has spread about human capabilities." Jake blinked. "Capabilities? You mean like opposable thumbs? Because honestly, that's pretty handy, but I wouldn't call it legendary." "Not exactly." Quillix pulled up a holographic display that showed a timeline of human encounters across known space. It began 2 years ago when Captain Sarah Chen of the exploration vessel Wanderer made contact with the Altarians during their harvest festival. The hologram showed a recreation of the event, a human female sitting at a table covered with what looked like innocent fruits and vegetables. The Altarians, being gracious hosts, offered Captain Chen their traditional feast. They were horrified when she began consuming what they considered deadly toxins. The display zoomed in on Chen enthusiastically eating what looked suspiciously like alien chili peppers. Jake scratched his head. "Wait, you mean spicy food? Deadly poison." Quillix shrieked, molting several feathers in his excitement. She consumed capsaicin compounds that would have killed most species instantly. And she asked for more. She said it wasn't hot enough and added additional toxins from her personal supply. Oh, that's just hot sauce. Sarah always carries that stuff everywhere. Says regular food is too bland without it. The chamber erupted in terrified whispers. Or in the case of the sonic species, terrified ultra-frequencies that made everyone's teeth ache. Quillix continued, his voice reaching panic octaves. Then there was the incident with Captain Rodriguez and the survival challenge on Deathworld Prime. Another hologram appeared, showing a human male in what appeared to be a lush forest environment. The planet was considered unsurvivable by every known species due to its extreme conditions, unpredictable weather, dangerous terrain, and the presence of wild predators. The local population was certain Captain Rodriguez would perish within hours. The hologram showed Rodriguez setting up what looked like a small shelter, building a fire, and cooking something over it. Instead, he thrived. He called the experience camping and said it reminded him of family vacations. He befriended the apex predators. Jake watched the display with growing amusement. Wait, is that a marshmallow? Was he making s'mores with the local wildlife? He formed pack bonds with creatures that had terrorized the system for centuries. They followed him around like loyal companions. Well, yeah, if you're nice to animals and share your food, they tend to like you. Basic social skills, really. Commander Vex leaned forward. Captain Morrison, your species has been classified as the most dangerous apex predators in known space. Every report we receive only confirms this assessment. Jake looked genuinely confused. Apex predators? Have you met humans? Most of us can't even open pickle jars without help. My neighbor Mrs. Patterson is afraid of butterflies. Which brings us to our current dilemma, Vex continued. The Council has decided that before we can proceed with any formal diplomatic relations, we need to assess your capabilities. Like a test. I hate tests. I'm terrible at multiple choice. Not exactly. Vex's expression became grimmer. We've prepared a practical evaluation. Something that will demonstrate whether humans truly possess the legendary prowess attributed to your species. Jake shrugged. Sure, I guess. What do I need to do? Please tell me it doesn't involve math. I left my calculator on the ship. The testing arena was the size of a football stadium, with viewing galleries that could accommodate thousands of spectators. Today it held exactly 43 very nervous alien diplomats and one increasingly confused human. So Jake said, looking around at the massive space, this is pretty impressive. Do you guys host gladiator fights or something? Because I should probably mention I'm more of a checkers kind of guy. Commander Vex activated the arena's sound system, his voice echoing dramatically through the space. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted non-binary entities of the Galactic Council, today we witness a test that will determine the fate of human galactic relations. Jake waved up at the viewing gallery. Hi everyone. Thanks for coming out. Hope this isn't too boring for you. Several delegates ducked behind their seats at his casual friendliness. In this arena, Vex continued, we will release the most feared creature in known space. A being so terrifying that entire star systems have been evacuated at the mere rumor of its presence. Ooh, sounds spooky, Jake said, genuinely interested. Is it like a space dragon? Please tell me it's a space dragon. That would make this whole weird day totally worth it. Ambassador Quillix's voice trembled over the intercom. Behold, the Doomclaw. The arena's massive doors began to grind open with ominous mechanical sounds that had been specifically engineered to inspire dread. Smoke poured from the opening, backlit by red warning lights. Wow, you guys really went all out with the presentation, Jake observed. Very theatrical. I like it. From the shadows emerged a sound that had haunted the nightmares of 1,000 worlds. A low, rumbling growl that seemed to vibrate through the very structure of the station. The Doomclaw. Vex announced, stands 12 feet tall at the shoulder, weighs over 3 tons, and possesses claws capable of rending starship hull plating. Its hide is impervious to most energy weapons, and its roar has been known to cause spontaneous evacuation of bowels across 17 different species. The creature stepped into the light, and Jake had to admit it was impressive. Imagine a saber-toothed tiger, Scale it up by a factor of 6, give it armored plating that shimmered with an oily rainbow sheen, add extra rows of teeth, and finish with claws that looked like they could open cans. Very large, very angry cans. The Doomclaw's eyes scanned the arena until they locked onto Jake. The beast let out another roar that rattled the viewing gallery's reinforced windows. In the stunned silence that followed, Jake's voice carried clearly through the arena. "Oh my God, you're gorgeous." The Doomclaw stopped mid-roar, looking as confused as a giant apex predator could look. "Look at those eyes. And those ears. You're just a big kitty, aren't you?" Jake took a step forward, and the entire viewing gallery gasped in horror. The Doomclaw tilted its massive head, making a sound that was less roar and more confused purr. "That's right, you beautiful boy. Yes, you are. You're the prettiest murder machine in the whole galaxy." What happened next would be debated in xenobiology classes for the next century. Jake Morrison, supposed apex predator of Earth, crouched down and extended his hand toward a creature that had single-handedly depopulated 3 moon colonies. "Come here, sweetie. Let's be friends." The Doomclaw approached cautiously, its massive paws making surprisingly little sound on the arena floor. When it reached Jake, it lowered its enormous head and sniffed his hand. "That's a good boy." "Yes, you are. Who's a good interdimensional terror?" "You are." The viewing gallery was so quiet you could hear Ambassador Quillix's feathers falling out. Jake began scratching behind what he assumed were the creature's ears, and the Doomclaw's purring became audible throughout the entire arena. The sound was like a freight train full of happy cats. "Oh, you like that, don't you?" "Of course you do. Every kitty likes ear scratches." Commander Vex's voice cracked over the intercom. "Captain Morrison, that creature has killed more sentient beings than the last 3 galactic wars combined." "Well, that's just because nobody ever gave him proper attention." Jake was now using both hands to scratch the massive creature's head. "Look at him. He's obviously been neglected. When's the last time someone told you that you were a good boy? Too long, I bet." The Doomclaw had now flopped onto its side, a position that displayed its armored belly. Its back leg was kicking involuntarily as Jake found a particularly good spot. "Oh, belly rubs. You want belly rubs, don't you, Mr. Fluffykins?" "Mr. Fluffykins?" General Thorg sputtered. "Well, I can't keep calling him the Doomclaw. That's not a proper name for such a handsome fellow. Look at this fluff." Jake buried his hands in what appeared to be surprisingly soft fur between the armored plates. "You're Mr. Fluffykins." "Yes, you are." The creature that had terrorized the galaxy was now making contented rumbling sounds and had all 4 massive paws in the air. "I bet nobody ever plays with you, do they? That's so sad. Every kitty needs playtime." Jake looked around the arena and spotted a piece of debris from the dramatic door opening. "Want to play fetch, Mr. Fluffykins?" He picked up what appeared to be a chunk of metal plating and held it up. The Doomclaw's eyes immediately focused on the object with laser intensity. "You want it? You want the shiny thing?" Jake threw the metal piece across the arena. The Doomclaw bounded after it with enthusiasm that shook the entire structure, caught it in midair, and brought it back to Jake, dropping it at his feet and looking up expectantly. "Good boy. Such a good boy. Want to go again?" For the next 20 minutes, the most feared creature in known space played fetch with a human while 43 alien diplomats watched in stunned silence. "Okay, Mr. Fluffykins. Let's try something else. Sit." The Doomclaw sat. "Stay." The creature stayed, vibrating with barely contained excitement. "Roll over." The 3-ton apex predator rolled over like an oversized puppy. Ambassador Quillix finally found his voice. "This is impossible. That creature has never shown anything but aggression toward any living being." "That's because you've been treating him like a monster instead of a pet." Jake called up to the viewing gallery. "He's obviously highly intelligent and social. He just needed some positive reinforcement." What started as a test of human capabilities quickly devolved into what would later be classified as Bureaucratic Incident 7842, the pet situation. Mr. Fluffykins had decided that Jake was his new favorite person in the universe and refused to let him out of sight. Every time Jake tried to move more than a few feet away, The massive creature would follow him with the devoted attention of a loyal dog. "Captain Morrison," Commander Vex called over the intercom. "We need to discuss the implications of this." "What implications?" Jake was currently teaching the Doomclaw to shake hands, which looked absolutely ridiculous given that the creature's paw was larger than Jake's entire torso. Well, for starters, that creature was on loan from the Borealis Maximum Security Preserve. They're going to want it back. But he doesn't want to go back. "Do you want to go back to the mean people, Mr. Fluffykins?" "No, you don't. You want to stay with Jake." The Doomclaw made what could only be described as a whining sound and nuzzled Jake's shoulder with enough force to knock over most humanoid species. It was at this moment that the arena's secondary doors opened and additional delegations began filing in. Word had spread throughout the station that something unprecedented was happening, and representatives from dozens of additional species had come to witness the spectacle. The first new arrival was Ambassador Gleep of the Mollusk Confederation, whose eye stalks immediately retracted into their shell upon seeing the scene. "Is that human? Cuddling the Doomclaw?" came a muffled voice from inside the shell. "Cuddling is such a limited word," Jake called out. "We're bonding. Right, Mr. Fluffykins?" The creature responded by licking Jake's face with a tongue the size of a bath towel, knocking him over but somehow managing to be gentle about it. "UWW. Kitty breath." Jake laughed, wiping his face. "When's the last time someone brushed your teeth, buddy? We need to work on your oral hygiene." More delegations arrived: the Silicon-based Collective, the Aquatic Federation, the Photosynthetic Alliance, and even a representative from the notoriously reclusive Energy Beings Union, who manifested as a slightly annoyed-looking ball of light. Each new arrival had the same reaction: complete and utter bewilderment. "This is highly irregular," announced High Magistrate Zorg of the Legal Precedent Committee, whose crystalline form was flashing urgent red patterns. "There are no protocols for whatever this is." "It's called friendship," Jake said, now sitting cross-legged while the Doomclaw had curled up around him like the world's most dangerous security blanket. "You should try it sometime. Very therapeutic. But the paperwork." Magistrate Zorg's flashing intensified. "If the creature is to remain with you, there are forms, adoption papers, liability waivers, interspecies custody agreements." "Adoption papers?" Jake perked up. "I can adopt him? Really?" "Nah." The viewing gallery erupted in chaos as various legal experts began arguing in 17 different languages about the implications of a human officially adopting a creature classified as a galactic threat level Omega. Meanwhile, several ongoing diplomatic crises were being accidentally resolved by Jake's continued interaction with Mr. Fluffykins. The Zephyrian trade dispute ended when both sides were too distracted by the spectacle to remember what they were fighting about. The Great Tentacle War was postponed indefinitely when the combatants realized they needed to witness this historic moment. And the crystalline gaseous border conflict was temporarily set aside when both sides agreed that whatever was happening in that arena was more important than their territorial town squabbles. "This is unprecedented," Commander Vex muttered, watching his carefully planned diplomatic schedule dissolve into chaos. "In 40 years of Council history, we've never had a situation quite like this." "Look on the bright side," Jake called out, having somehow acquired a space-age frisbee from one of the vendors who had set up shop in the viewing gallery. "You're about to witness the first interspecies ultimate frisbee match in galactic history. Go long, Mr. Fluffykins." 3 hours later, after the Doomclaw had learned to play frisbee, roll over, play dead, and somehow perform what Jake insisted was a high five, Commander Vex finally managed to restore some semblance of order to the proceedings. "Captain Morrison," he announced, "the Galactic Council needs to reach a formal decision regarding your species application for membership." Jake looked up from where he was lying on the arena floor, using Mr. Fluffykins as a very large, very warm pillow. "Oh right, that's why I'm here. I kind of forgot about the whole diplomatic thing. This has been way more fun than I expected." "The question remains," Ambassador Quillix added, having finally emerged from behind his protective barrier. "What do we do about the situation?" "What situation?" Jake asked. "The fact that you've somehow domesticated the most feared creature in known space." Jake sat up, looking genuinely confused. "Domesticated? I didn't domesticate him. I just treated him like a living being instead of a monster. There's a difference. Dodge. He stood up and addressed the viewing gallery directly. Look, I think there's been a big misunderstanding here. Humans aren't these scary apex predators you think we are. We're just good with animals. The assembled delegates exchanged glances, tentacles, and various other anatomical features used for nonverbal communication. Think about it, Jake continued. Every story you've heard about humans probably involves us getting along with some creature that everyone else was afraid of, right? Commander Vex nodded slowly. The reports did mention unusual interspecies bonding. That's because we've spent our entire evolutionary history learning to work with other species. Dogs, cats, horses, dolphins, you name it. If it's alive and not actively trying to kill us, we'll probably try to make friends with it. Jake scratched Mr. Fluffykins behind the ears, causing another round of satisfied purring. The galaxy's been so focused on being afraid of dangerous creatures that nobody's tried actually communicating with them. This big guy isn't evil. He's just lonely and misunderstood. But the attacks, the destroyed colonies, General Thord protested. Have you ever seen what a bored dog does to a house? Jake asked. Now imagine that dog is 12 feet tall and nobody's given it any attention for decades. Of course it's going to act out. A profound silence fell over the arena as the implications of Jake's words sank in. So what do you propose? Commander Vex asked. Jake grinned. Easy. Galactic Pet Therapy Program. Think about it. How many of your dangerous creatures are actually just misunderstood animals that need proper care and socialization? Ambassador Quillix's feathers ruffled with excitement. That's actually not entirely unreasonable. We could start small, Jake continued, warming to the theme. Pair experienced humans with some of your less terrifying monsters. See how it goes. I bet within a year, half your galactic threats will be certified therapy animals. Magistrate Zorg's crystalline form pulsed thoughtfully. The legal framework would be complex but manageable. And think of the tourism opportunities. Jake added. Intergalactic petting zoos, exotic pet adoption services. The marketing potential is enormous. The energy being representative flickered with what might have been amusement. The human suggests turning our greatest fears into entertainment attractions? Not entertainment, Jake corrected. Companionship. Everyone needs a friend, even scary space monsters. Commander Vex looked around the viewing gallery at his fellow delegates. For the first time in decades, he saw something approaching consensus. Very well, Captain Morrison. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I hereby approve humanity's membership application. Welcome to the galactic community. Awesome. Thanks. Jake paused. Does this mean I can take Mr. Fluffykins home with me? Because I'm pretty sure he's not going to want to stay here. And honestly, I've grown kind of attached. The massive creature chose that moment to demonstrate its attachment by picking Jake up gently in its mouth and setting him on its back like a very small rider on a very large horse. I think, Commander Vex said with what might have been the first genuine smile he'd worn in years, that can be arranged. Though you'll need to file the proper paperwork. No problem. Hey, do you guys have a spacecraft big enough for Mr. Fluffykins? Because I'm not sure he's going to fit in my shuttle. As Jake Morrison rode the galaxy's former most feared apex predator out of the arena, chatting cheerfully about the logistics of interspecies pet ownership. The assembled delegates of the Galactic Council shared a collective realization. The universe had just become a much more interesting place. And somewhere in the depths of space, other terrible monsters were about to discover that being misunderstood wasn't a life sentence after all. 3 months later, the first Galactic Emotional Support Animal Certification Program graduated its initial class of 12 formerly terrifying creatures and their human companions. Mr. Fluffykins, now officially registered as the first Galactic Emotional Support Apex Predator, had become something of a celebrity. Jake Morrison returned to Earth with the strangest mission report in human history, and a 3-ton pet that had somehow learned to use a litter box. The galaxy would never be the same.